remakes these days, but what's a movie remake you'd actually like to see? If they make a live action of Treasure Planet, and the special effects are really good, that would be amazing honestly. Flight of the Navigator. I really want a Frankenstein remake by Guillermo del Toro. He is one of the best modern directors that captures the feel of romantic horror. Hell, let him remake every Universal monster film. The Langoliers. Bad Day at Black Rock. It's a 1955 film about a vet looking for his Japanese army buddy's father. The son had died in combat and the vet is there to give a posthumous medal to the father. The movie is about the vet trying to find the father, and the mystery of what happened to the father. Basically a bunch of townsfolk murdered the father because he was Japanese and as retaliation for the bombing of Pearl Harbor. I think this film set in a contemporary post-9/11 setting would be fascinating. Where the destruction of the Twin Towers is what sets the murder in motion, and the victim is a Muslim vet who served in the Gulf War. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Percy Jackson. I want a Netflix series, I want movies, I want something. Anything would be better than the first attempt at adapting it. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I loved the animated series but hated the movie. Ender's Game, but make the first book into a trilogy of movies. They glossed over so much good stuff. The first movie should focus on everything leading up to the Academy, ending on the first time Ender enters the battle area. Second movie should be all about the Academy and battle arena, as well as the politics surrounding the kids in the Academy, ending maybe right before the last Academy battle. Last movie should be Last Academy Battle, Transition, and all the Academy Finals tests. This would be a story with such greater detail, topics, and a much greater punch to the twist. The original Hellraiser. It could be so awesome with current technology. I love that movie but it did not age well. The Never-Ending Story. Twins starting Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart, a remake of the iconic movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. Cats Don't Dance, the underrated masterpiece. Eragon, but this time it's actually good and gets a sequel. I'd love to see more stories set in the universe that The Fifth Element built. It had a great aesthetic and there would be so much worth exploring. Spawn. I've heard rumors about a remake for years but I think it really deserves another shot now that CGI is better controlled. Mortal Kombat. Timeline by Michael Crichton. I love the book, but the movie was so badly made. Basically stories that I know are solid but weren't properly adapted to the screen. I'm excited they are remaking Dune. The Breakfast Club, but with like more modern stereotypes. Logan's Run. The Road to El Dorado or Atlantis. Both live-action versions. Both are a little underrated, so I think it would be cool to make live-action adaptations to introduce them to younger audiences. Forbidden Planet if done right. Star Wars prequel trilogy. I honestly think it had potential, they just needed to hire a screenwriter and director other than George Lucas, who is not good at either of those things. I'd like to see an American version of Train to Busan. If done right it would maintain the horror and tugging of heartstrings, but inject American cultural touchstones and zombie movie tropes. There's a Stephen King adaptation of a book called Maximum Overdrive. Basically what happens is that a meteor flies over the world and all the electronics gain sentience and start killing people. I think that would be a great movie to adapt into 2020, because you can do so much with it with technology as it is today. Cats, but with real cats. Not furries. Idiocracy. The Labyrinth. Just because the budget of the original didn't extend to making a compellingly magical, dark and dangerous maze. Though there can be no replacing Bowie, so. I would like to see a live-action remake of Atlantis because that movie was so good, and if they do a live-action version it would be a masterpiece. Duna, as TV series. Original movie wasn't too great and it definitely didn't explore a lot of themes in the book, it just ignored them. In movie Paul is prophet and has some godlike powers. In books he is called as prophet, but whole religion was created by one faction and the whole prophecy is a lie made so that if needed, the faction could produce a prophet. Percy Jackson. So it'll be an actual Percy Jackson movie. I love the original Hellraiser, but I'd love to see what someone could do with the film technology and special effects that we have now compared to back then. Silent Hill. The first one's dope, but if it was made today without any corporate influence, it would be amazeballs. Possibly Gremlins. Even though it's considered a classic, I think it's underrated. The Last Starfighter. The Gremlins remake would be pretty cool. Lawrence of Arabia. Slightly faster paced, more realistic combat. Paul Bettany or Benedict Cumberbatch as the lead. Battle Royale. Star Wars prequels. Percy Jackson. The movies were so bad and in no way represent the source material. I guess some of the characters had the same name in the book lol. Anybody who has read the books making the Percy Jackson movies. I want to see a high-budget movie saga adaptation of Barnacle. The 4 actual movies produced were god-awful, and only covered a fraction of a percent of the source material anyway. Who do I have to throw money at to make this happen? Timeline. Little Women. I can't wait to see the remake of Little Women. I'm so excited for it to be streamable. Collection of such amazing actresses being back a classic. Nice try, movie execs. The Dark Crystal. Especially after the precursor show Netflix did. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. With Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, respectively, and Holly Marie Combs as Etta. Yes, I know, it's a horrible idea, but it's one that I've had for years now. The Basketball Diaries. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood should be remade into a mockumentary about Mr. Rogers' Navy SEAL years. Dune. To Kill a Mockingbird. It's heresy, I know, but that story has multiple layers and plenty of juice. I'd love to see another take on it. 13th Warrior. Marvel Endgame, except it's adapted for the theater. All live actors. No special effects. Altered States. Treasure Planet, Titan A, the Atlantis series. The Last Starfighter. Smile, imagine the quality of video games and stories we could have now. Less Than Zero. Initial D. Tofu Boy deserved better. Seems a lot of people don't like this movie for some reason I can't find out, but Barnyard. I would watch it religiously as a kid, and I recently lost the PS2 disc of the game that I would casually revisit. Passengers. Kelly's Heroes. Cheaper by the Dozen, a wonderful story about an inventor and his family with 12 children. They have made a bad comedy loosely based on the book in the 90s, but a more authentic filmatization of the book in the original time period, early 1900s, would be in place. Edit, not a tale but a story based on a real family. The Third Man. I can see Liam Neeson doing a remake of this. Shrek 2. A remake of Life of Brian starring Keanu Reeves as Brian. Cats. Too soon? 1984. I keep always hearing rumors of a Scarface remake and people always hate on it. I'd welcome it, considering the first one was based on Al Capone and Prohibition. Very significant at the time. And the remake featuring Pacino was based on cocaine, which in the 80s was a pretty relevant thing. It's a movie I feel that can be remade every couple decades to stay relevant. Otherwise, I definitely welcome remakes of the older monsters films such as Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, Dracula, etc. Percy Jackson, but actually good this time. Soylent Green. Maybe this one would be a documentary. The original Nightmare on Elm Street. If we had this thing remade with today's quality and care, I think I'd love it so much more. Airplane. With modern-day improv comedians. I think it'd be hilarious. The original was incredible, but I'd be on board with a remake of 12 Angry Men. I'd like a remake of Moby Dick. The film adaptation is super old and the story is totally worth a well-produced movie. The Hobbit, starring Ian McKellen, Richard Armitage, Martin Freeman, scored by Howard Shore, directed by Peter Jackson, same cinematography and color schemes etc., but with less green screen and more actual actors, no freaking fanfiction add-ins from Legolas and Galadriel and Elrond, much as I liked them in no changes for the love of changing things, like Tauriel, Radagast, etc., you get the general idea. Something that would probably look like the Maple edit, but even more trimmed down. I'd love to see a remake of The Goonies. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the movie is quite bad. The Incredibles, but live action instead of animated. Remake all movies directed by brilliant director Tarantino and simply remove all instances of horrible actor Tarantino. Angels and Demons plus Inferno. The Da Vinci Code was such a good adaptation of Dan Brown's book, but the sequels somehow fell flat. I would like to see a Thelma and Louise too. I think they survived the whole driving off the canyon thing.